Hello, today I'm going to show you how I've made this grey embroidered coat for the Blythe doll size. Here are my pattern pieces, and here's a test coat that I'd made to check the sizing. First I made a version in this pink felt. I tested doing some surface embroidery before turning the coat out. And here you can see it came out quite nicely. My rose was a little bit high, it gets covered by this collar. So I thought I would make some more alterations and make this grey version with this lovely fake fur collar. So you place your pattern pieces any way you like in order to leave as little waste, and cut out the same for your lining. First attach your front coat parts and then make a center line. I'm going to sew from the side seams towards the center back of the rear skirt part, so that then I can press down and sew over this center pleat, so I know it's nice and centered and even. Then I attach the sleeves. Again, I'm sewing from the side towards the center, so I'm left with a little excess to create a pleat in the top. You could use a running stitch to ease in your sleeves, but I like the sharp crease that you get from this centered pinch. Next you can add some top stitching around those seams, and I'm going to plan out my pockets next. I wanted to create a little bow topped pocket, so again from felt I've just cut out these shapes. I do a little running stitch and then wrap the thread around. Then I'm able to wrap that with a tiny piece of felt to create the center of the bow, and do a little stitch to hold that in place, and then I sew across these, right sides facing, to make this tiny pocket piece. And then I'm just going to place these on the coat and then do a running stitch around. We have the lining pieces here, which will attach in the same way as the felt. The back skirt is slightly narrower, so you don't have as big a pleat. Next, for the collar, I'm just going to sew all the way around, leaving a small gap for turning inside out, you can see here. And then you just carefully turn it all inside out. Ladder stitch to close up that opening. Now you can see here I have embroidered my designs onto the felt, and I've tried to leave plenty space away from my seam allowances so that when it's turned inside out that it won't cover up any of this embroidery. You take your lining, which is all one part, and line them up at the end of your sleeves first of all, so you'll do a single seam along each of these and then trim off your excess. It's about a 5mm seam allowance that I use all the way around for this coat. And then I sew along the bottom of the rear skirt, and one longer seam around the front and openings, so that all that's left open are your side seams and the long parts of your sleeves. Now the method for assembling involves turning and popping through the opening of the sleeve, the front skirt, and we tuck this into the side and rear skirt. Hopefully it will be clear from the video how to do this, but you essentially end up with a complete circle that you need to sew. So for one side of the coat, either side, you will sew this entire seam all the way round. And for the other side, it's exactly the same. You turn fold your sleeves over and you turn the front skirt in through the sleeves and into the back. But this time you will leave a space open in the lining for turning through the whole coat. So make sure it's a big enough gap to pull the whole coat through. Here you can see the two seams and the opening, which is just big enough. Now you're going to trim your seam allowances again and pull the whole coat through the hole in your lining. Here you can see I'm using a tool just to push out all of my points, all the corners, and then again, just with some patience, takes a wee while, turn the sleeves through the right way as well, and you'll find that they're fully lined. Then just use a ladder stitch again to close up the opening in your lining, and then you'll want to, possibly by hand or by machine, depending on what you're comfortable with, do a top stitching all the way around your sleeves and all your edges. At this point I realised I'd forgotten to put in this little label with a B for Blythe, but next we'll add on any extra decorations, so this bow for the back and the collar, which you place right side facing the lining and sew along, and then turn it inside out in a manner to have it facing the right way. So here we have the bow and the collar, and I've just opened up the lining, popped in my label, and then sewed it closed again, but that could have been included in an earlier stage. Now I've got two lengths of ribbon which I just sew into the underside of the collars, and I've stitched down the collars a little bit to have them sit flat. I can use that to close up the top of the coat. Now I have these two tiny Fimo buttons that I've made, and stitch them on, and I'll show you how to do embroidered or knotted buttonhole loops. So without a knot, you simply bring your thread out and around. You just have to eyeball the right size. You're going to make two loops out of this thread that are the same size, and then using a series of knots, just slowly and carefully, and bringing your needle through from the same direction each time, you'll create basically a long series of knots which will neaten and strengthen your button loop. So you're passing the needle through and through again through the loop, and again no need to knot to finish it off, since the whole thing is knots. You just pass it through in between your two layers of fabric up to your next button position, and again create two loops in the same position that will cover your button, as you can see. And there we have another, and again you don't need to knot to finish it off, you just need to pass your thread out through somewhere inconspicuous and snip it off. And here we have two working button loops, and nice method for doll clothes because you can do them in any colour to match your item. And here we have the finished coat. She's all dressed up for a chilly day. Here are both the coats side to side. And here she is out in our garden. So you could use any combination of colours, any kind of embroidery, lots of different options for pockets, and use them to keep your dolls nice and cosy. The pattern for this coat will be available for free on my Facebook crafts page. You'll find a link in the description below, and it will be in a photo album. So please feel free to share what you make with me. I'd love to see what you come up with. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed and followed me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.